Dear Lord, thank you for this Thanksgiving holiday, and for all the material possessions that we have and enjoy, and for letting us white people kill all the Indians and steal their tribal lands and stuff ourselves like pigs, even though children in Asia are being napalmed.
Okay. Jesus, enough! All right.
And that was a clip of The Ice Storm, the 1997 Ang Lee film that we'll be discussing later in this episode, and to coincide with the Criterion Blu-ray release on the 23rd of July. This is Movies the Podcast, and I'm Curtis.
And this is Jordan.
Brenda.
This is Rob.
So let's catch up. We haven't seen each other in a while.
I miss you guys.
It's been so long.
My life is so empty when I'm not with you.
I still don't like you guys.
Oh, God. Weeks later.
I hold a grudge. Like I hold a sandwich in my face.
I can tell.
I know. I had someone...
Do you like another cookie?
I've already had 6 of them.
I've eaten so many. Rob, what did we just see?
We just watched that French film by Francois Ozon, In the House. By now it's probably on DVD, but it's...
Well, it's still, God, all those little indie movies end up on demand like a week after.
I loved it. I thought it was you were telling me that it was more like a dark comedy, which it was, but it felt to me like a thriller because some of the sequences of just how this character kept pushing the boundaries of how much he could see and know about this family, and how he was not afraid to get caught in certain situations. That it kept me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, the plot was
tiny seats.
Basically, it's a teacher who's very bored with his job, and then he asks the students to write about their weekend. He starts grading their papers, and they're all like, I ate pizza, did nothing, ate pizza, was lazy. And one says, he starts reading one paper, and it says, I wanted to go inside this house in this neighborhood, so I became friends with the boy who lives there, and I got into the house, and that's it.
But the exchange that where the teacher's talking about the assignment, it's with his wife, who's played by Christina Thomas, and it unintentionally makes her an accomplice in that situation because she's like, they can't be that terrible. They can't all be that terrible papers. And so he's reading them off of his example, like, this kid did this for 48 hours. All he did was play on his phone and eat pizza. But then he comes across that one paper, and the wife is interested, and so is he. And at first, the teacher is slightly dismissive of what he's trying to go for, but the way the film plays on the voyeurism between the teacher and the pupil, and the people and the people in the house, and then Kristen Scott Thomas is a wife who is meant to be removed, but then they somehow get incorporated into the story. I loved it. I loved that film so much.
Yeah, it was a really, really good film. I don't know if you guys have seen Swimming Pool. Do you remember this came out?
I love Swimming Pool.
It's by the same guy who did Swimming Pool.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people didn't love Swimming Pool, but I really loved it.
Swimming Pool is not as suspenseful as the trailer would lead you to think. I remember when it came out thinking this is going to be really suspenseful, and it's not. Whereas this movie kind of played exactly as it should.
Didn't he also do, it was a musical.
8 Women?
Eight Women. I saw that one. I thought it was really cute.
I need to rewatch that. I saw that
It's
when
fantastic.
it first came out. Catherine Deneuve and Charlotte Rampling and
Isabelle Huppert.
or is it
we interchange Isabelle Huppert and Charlotte Rampling.
yeah, they're the same person to me.
They kind of are.
They were both in Piano Teacher, right? I'll cut the vagina for you. No, I'll do it. No, it's okay.
No, I'll play this part.
Charlotte Rampling's vagina.
That was from the night porter until now.
Dude, I've seen more of her vagina than I've seen of my own. Speaking of, has anyone seen my hand mirror?
We did. I mean,
Juan,
or who are you today?
This is Dan.
Edit that.
Dan's back.
Dan!
Yay!
Hello.
Dan did not introduce himself in the beginning, but he is here.
He is back. He's free. And thankfully, we don't record this 500 feet from an elementary school, so he can be with us tonight. This is what happens when you tell me to be nice before we go on air. Oh, I'll be nice.
You're like a little kid with firecrackers. Don't light those. And Jordan's like putting him near fire. I'm not lighting him the fire.
I'm putting M80s in the model
microwave,
airplanes of my life.
What else have we caught up on?
Read.
I think everybody watched Star Trek Into Darkness, didn't they?
Star Trek.
Yes, we did. We all did watch that. Not together, but we all watched it.
You saved my life. You're my friend.
Oh.
I think one of the best love stories ever is Spock and Kirk. That was, like,
Seriously.
they are
Romance.
so close to like rubbing each other's faces while they kiss.
That was my biggest.
Mind melding each other.
That was my biggest holdup from first movie to second one. I felt like they drove that point home in the first one. They're best friends now. They can rely on each other, and I get it. They needed to do it in the second movie, but it's just like, you're really driving this point home.
Not to pick one fault in that film, but the romance between Spock and Uhura always feels shoehorned into the plot. There's no reason for
Is
them
it
to have a
because Zach
romance.
Quinto is gay?
I
Is
don't
that
know.
No, I don't think that's.
Well,
Well,
when the first one,
I
they
don't
just
know.
there
I
was
don't
like a
think
slight
that.
reveal.
I think of him and I think of Spock's character as being very gay, and I feel like
He's
it's
very
so
sexual, though.
Like all the men are very homoerotic in these films,
but it's
And
so
then-
unintentional.
but the women are like so impossibly beautiful because Zoe Saldana and then I forget the name,
The new girl.
who plays
Alice Eve.
Alice Eve, who's gorgeous. I mean, it just
She's,
seems like
what
a
is
bunch
it,
of gay
Curtis?
guys hanging out with really hot women.
She's the nanny from
Sex and the City 2.
Oh yeah, the Irish nanny.
with the boobies.
But
And
there's
that's
a-
me jiggling.
There's a lot of controversy about her, that gratuitous shot of her in her bra and panties. And the screenwriter said,
Yeah.
well, we also see, Kirk in his underwear and shirtless. And he goes, I'm not trying to be misogynistic. And he spelled it wrong. So then his next tweet was, and I'll also learn how to spell misogynistic.
Those movies are always
They're very sexual for-
gratuitous. I mean, the violence is gratuitous.
But you look at the
It's corny
demographic
as
that they're
shit.
going for.
Oh,
of
you loved
course.
the movie.
I loved it. And everyone in the audience.
Pretend you hated it.
And it was old gay people and old ladies and young frat boy. I mean, it was
Did
everyone.
you go see the matinee showing of this?
I went to a Friday night showing in Wichita, Kansas.
Can we talk about the best
At
part of the movie?
nation's largest IMAX.
I'm
What
gonna
was
have
the
to
best
send him that
part?
clip from Big Kahuna.
What am I doing?
What was the best part?
The villain. Benedict Cumberbatch.
But here's what made me
so
so...
good.
Cumberbatch.
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 What did I say?
No, I was just saying his name.
Oh, okay.
It's fun to say.
It's a fun name to say. Benedict Cumberbatch.
He makes
he was a-
triangle face.
He was amazing in that
What?
movie.
It's your
He
Royal
was.
Highness reference. Never mind,
But
I'm
what's
gonna go
really
show.
upset me is the more you find out about that character, the things you find out about that character, the second you get him on IMDb and look at the cast, you know what the reveal is. And that really upset me because they were really fighting against the reveal of who the villain was.
Yeah.
And on IMDb even listed him as...
Just call, let's say, spoiler alert. If you want to fast forward, you
He's
can fast forward.
Khan, and for the longest time it didn't say that on IMDb. It even said his original name and whatever. And then
John Harrison.
the second we got out of the movie,
And we
I'm
watched
looking
it
up,
a
it
day
said-
before it opened, so it was already up that night.
And not that that's a ginormous reveal, because if you haven't seen the original series, you don't know who Khan is.
And it seems like the movies they're following the original movies.
Oh, I hope
because
not.
the setup at the end of this one is the same setup as the beginning of the third one.
It's not.
So
No, because Spock was dead at the end of the second one. He didn't come back alive.
That was part of the complaint about this one was that if you're gonna be as bold to kill off such a main character like they did in Wrath of Khan, go that far, and they spent all of the third film revealing that he was alive.
Spock's soul went into bones.
I mean,
and
it's not following it verbatim.
No. I know what you.
because
that last scene was
this new character is the same. It's Kirk's wife from the original series, who you meet in the third episode. So
If you're gonna go that far and kill off Kurt, spoiler alert.
which was a phenomenal. I would have loved it if it.
If it would have ended there,
screamed
that would have
Khan.
been fantastic. Because one of the reviews that I was talking was like, if they just needed we're going full on spoiler here. If they just needed Khan's blood, you had an entire fleet of people trapped in there with the same superhuman blood. Why was it necessary to catch Khan?
They would have had
dumb
to freeze
bitches.
him, though, wouldn't they?
And they didn't know how to.
you mean Star Trek had a plot hole?
I was watching you looking at me, and you were waiting to deliver that.
Waiting.
You had set up that missile just
You
to
said
shit in my face.
This flight has been
After we got
delayed. Yeah, it was great. It was a really good, I think, but it's not a memorable film.
I
but it's
did
a
like
good
it that it seemed this time there were
you called it like a roller coaster, remember?
movie.
there were more little love letters to like true Trekkies in this one.
The Tribbles.
The Tribble.
Oh, that
my
was
God.
cute.
I audibly said
The
something.
Tribble, what's that?
The little
It's the little
fuzzy
The
thing.
little fuzzy
Trouble with
thing.
Tribbles.
It's
I'll
a
show you the
classic
Star
Star
Trek.
Trek episode from the original
You can
series.
see it on Netflix.
The Trouble with Tribbles.
Yeah,
and
my dad's a
Tribbles-
Trekkie.
I'm
The
in
Where
Tribbles
in the
showed
movie did
up.
they show?
That's the little creature that he
The bones
injected
was
the
what-
blood into.
That's cute.
It's their whole episode of the original Star Trek. They like take over the ship because they breed so fast. So yeah,
Nerds.
So I'll go on to something that's a little bit more independent. I saw Mud this weekend.
did you see mine?
I loved it.
I didn't want to see it. That trailer
I
was
think it's-
terrible.
I cannot wait. I keep putting it off.
I think it's really good, and they keep saying that, Matthew McConaughey's best performance. I think he did a really good job.
Oh, I bet he did. I'm going to ask you to spoil it for me later, because we've talked about how I like that guy's second movie, Take Shelter, a lot with
That
Michael
was a good
Shannon
movie.
and
Yeah,
Jessica
Michael
Chastain.
Shannon has a smaller role in this, but I think it's even. I love that he's in it.
Well, and it's good to see Reese Witherspoon actually doing like some real movies again.
What? This is war. This means war wasn't like.
That wasn't real enough for me.
She
But
has
she used
a
to do indie
mortgage
stuff.
like everybody else.
not with doing those movies. She ain't got no more. She owns a house on the block. But she used to do indie movies like Freeway and then to Sweet Home Alabama. So
Election.
so to do something like this really makes me proud that she realizes like, okay, I need to pull back and start doing like.
And she
I'm
wasn't
a-
the star of it.
That's great. Yeah, I'm actually an actress, so let me try. Was she any good?
Yeah, I think the whole cast was good. Even the two little boys, I would watch out for them, in the future.
One of them was from Tree of Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're always trying to get our friends Justin and Chris, who they do listen, so hi Justin. Well, Justin listens. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
Chris
I wasn't
doesn't
gonna say
listen.
hi to Chris.
But we're always showing them movies that we think they'll like, and we usually strike out. But the last two times, we've actually succeeded. So we had them watch Young Adult, which we'll talk about later. But we had them watch The Mist, which we were kind of debating if we're going to watch Diabolique or The Mist, and we are like, no, we think you guys will like The Mist. They loved it, and I loved it. Watching it again, like after so many years.
And I was just.
It
Have
really
you seen The Mist?
It really holds
Yeah,
up after
I-
2 or 3
it's
viewings.
amazing.
Yeah,
It
I
really
missed
does.
like the first 15 minutes, I want to say, it was playing on TV, but I wanted to see it for so long that I was like, screw it, and I just watched it. And
So
with
you
the
haven't
little
even seen the beginning?
No.
It sets up. There's enough character setup in the beginning to kind of establish what's going on. But I mean, you still watch it, you still get it. But it's just that ending. I was like, good for you, Weinstein, for sticking to that ending.
Yeah.
But do you think that movie's responding? It feels very of its time. It feels very post 9/11, very
Yeah.
Bush administration, very like it has a lot of that fear and a lot of that
that group paranoia,
that
the
anxiety.
hysteria, the
And we
unknown.
kept. I said a joke, and I'm sorry to offend anybody. But I was like, it's like the Christians are always like. I love that they're the bad guys in this movie, the religious people. My friend said because they are.
That seriously was one of the ballsiest moves I've
It's
seen in a movie,
bold.
especially for a movie that wasn't like huge, but it
Yeah,
had
it was-
a modest
Had-
release.
Yeah.
Ballsy.
And I will say there are a handful of actresses that just show up in movies, and I love them. Marcia Gay Harden. Like, I feel like even when she's in a small role, she just shows up and does an
Damages.
amazing job. And
Mystic River, like
she's incredible in Mystic River.
so good at Mystic River.
She's going to be on the next the next season of Newsroom on HBO. I'm so excited. What are you doing?
That's a question.
No, that's not a question.
Do you see a spider web? Like, what are you doing?
It's kind of.
Anyway, as I was saying, she's going to be on the next season of Newsroom, so I'm very
you're right.
excited.
She is somebody
about
that-
Marcia Gay Harden.
Okay,
That's not dirty. Gay Harden is
there
her
you go.
name.
That's what I was
Gay
looking
hard
for.
on.
I'll tell you later.
Oh my god! So
Do you not know
yes.
how radio works?
So we were very successful.
You're doing lots of visual things.
We were very successful in choosing a movie that they actually enjoyed,
So,
which is good for us.
Hey.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
It's a fantastic scary movie, and just God, every time the kid starts crying, I start bawling because my little brother was about the same age when that movie came out. So every time he's like, no, I would be, and then of course the ending. So probably whispering about
We're being fired.
dead air.
We're being fired
They're
right
letting
now.
us go.
We're going to have a spinoff.
Do you guys have anything else you want to catch up on, or should we
Let's talk about Iron Man.
round? Oh, we're gonna talk about Iron Man. Okay.
Iron Man came out.
Iron Man came out.
And
Moving on.
done.
They tried to debate me. Listen, I'm glad I'm not a religious zealot because I would like lose my mind. People disagreed with me about Iron Man being. They said Iron Man was better than Star Trek, and I said no, you're wrong. They're like, no, it's just our opinion. No, you're wrong. It's fine. And
No,
and I've never seen it.
it was. I'm gonna just keep my mouth shut then.
Because I know that Star Trek is better, but it's
No,
fine.
I enjoyed Iron Man a lot more than I enjoyed Star Trek.
That's a debate. That is a
Iron Man is hanging on with the good humor of the American public, and Robert Downey Jr. is falling out of favor. I love Gwyneth, but come on, girl, get a job, like a real acting job.
And I love how you haven't seen it. You're trying to
haven't
introduce
seen
Jordan
it.
pretty much at this point.
What? He says it like it's
Now you're
not.
going to be on the
It's an
same
insult.
cycle.
You're acting like Jordan. That's the meanest goddamn thing.
That's
you've
the meanest
ever
thing I've
said.
ever said to me.
I was referring to his review of The Impossible without even seeing it.
As I've said before, I don't have to see a movie to know that I hate a movie. And I
Exactly,
admitted that
Curtis.
I
I mean,
was
Jordan.
a convert to loving The Impossible.
Whereas I'll go and do anything. I don't care. So yes, Iron Man came out. We're all caught up. We could segue. This is my This is my smooth segue into the ice storm. So we wanted to kind of talk about sort of a movie that you should see, whether it's a great movie, a classic movie. But I thought this one was one that not a lot of people have seen, and the people that have seen it have probably not seen it in a while. I know I hadn't seen it in probably 5-6 years since it came out, maybe, but I always knew I loved it. And we saw that Criterion was coming out with the Blu-ray. With a ton of special features, and I'm sure it'll look amazing. So I wanted us to rewatch it, and when this comes out, it'll just be coming out on Blu-ray as well, so put it on your queue or buy it. We all rewatched it, but I'm curious to find out, because we have it.
Save for me.
Oh, did you? Oh, what, Brenna? Okay, well, you can just stick around. Jordan had a copy. So we will...
That he didn't share.
I'm curious
But I wasn't asked to share.
Oh, my God. Kids,
I
you would have shared it.
You know what?
I often don't do my homework, so I can't really say anything. I never do my homework.
For as much as we paint Jordan as the bad guy,
It's
he
really
wasn't at
Brenda.
fault here.
It's really Brenda who's the bad guy. But I'm curious. We haven't talked about it at all.
But I feel like you're still judging me.
We should be.
Like when you make fun of Curtis, you're looking straight at me.
Because I'm not supposed to turn my face too much when I'm talking into the mic. You're in my eye line.
So I'm curious to see what everybody thinks, because we've all watched it besides Brenda, and we're...
At this point, I'm just going to shut up.
I'm curious to see what everybody thought of it, who hasn't, especially since we all really haven't seen it in a
Brenda,
while.
please don't leave.
So
Come
Rob,
back.
what did you think?
I thought I had recently seen it, but no, it's. I think I'm gonna agree with what Jordan was trying to tell us earlier before he keeping it from blowing his load on the film, but it holds up really well. It's a great testament to the filmmaking and the acting and just the story. It's for a period film and for a film that's 15 years old.
It was 96, so it's 20.
17 years old.
Yeah,
96 or 97?
97.
It was
So
97,
16
but
years
16
old.
It's over 15 years old. It holds the test of time just fine. And the performances, so many films since then have done so many films since then and prior have taken relationship problems and deconstructed them and done them in different ways. But the performances here, for me especially, Joan Allen. Joan Allen was for how little she conveyed, or how little she spoke, and so much she conveyed through her expressions and just her actions to her husband. I loved her performance. Sigourney Weaver was also really good, but Joan Allen to me was the standout in that
The
film.
MVP.
Yeah, and I loved it. I'm glad that you gave us that homework, and I might buy the Blu-ray because it's a film that I would love to revisit
Oh,
again.
you really did love it. What'd you think, Jordan?
This is the thing. This is not, for those of you who are going to watch this for the first time, if you're feeling at all depressed or unsatisfied about your life, do not watch this film.
Oh, really?
And I was not in a very good mental place when I watched it again. And so it was kind of, it is a sad movie and it's a slow movie. I watched it with two people I don't think that really enjoyed it very much. I enjoyed it, and I really and I'd seen it before and I realized how much I didn't remember from it, because there was so much going on in that film. But Joan Allen brought it for sure. Christina Ricci, I didn't realize was so small.
She's still that tiny.
Tiny. I want that red cape.
She's a
I
step
wanna
above
wear it.
dwarf.
But it was just.
Do you want the Nixon mask also?
Oh my God. I want to lose my virginity in a Nixon mask.
And a red cape.
I lost mine in a Ronald Reagan mask, so, I kind of related.
In the 80s.
It was the 70s.
Yeah, it was definitely, even for me, sorry, were you finna?
No, I was just saying that I was pleasantly surprised by just how many, and the performances are all really subtle too. I mean, and we talked about Ang Lee.
We're both agreeing.
We talked about Ang Lee before and how he creates in his films. He creates these very subtle, emotionally distant performances, and Brokeback Mountain, and was the Sense and Sensibility we talked about. Where
and I'm sure it's echoed in Less Caution, his other film. I haven't seen it yet.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that you really got to see. You didn't get to see these characters to an incredible depth, and you got to see a very surface. Sigourney Weaver's character, and there's a lot of, just facial expressions and looking out of windows, and a lot of those movie cliche tropes that you see, but really done really well. That scene with Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver at the party where she kind of just dismisses him and just stares out the window until he gets tired of talking to her and walks away. I mean, that's such a powerful... It's really just... She's looking out a window, and it's just such a powerful moment.
Oh, yeah, she was Benjamin Hood.
Yeah, and it's just all those subtleties, and, after... I was kind of comparing it in my mind to American Beauty a little bit, because that came out a couple years later, and also kind of looked at that the crisis of suburbia and that in a much more modern context. But I think Ice Storm, if you had to compare the two, I think Ice Storm's definitely the better film.
I do remember that I learned what a key party is through the Ice Storm.
You know what was funny is when I mentioned it to a friend that I was rewatching it, he said to me, "Oh, the Key Party movie," and I was like, "Ugh." I was like, "It's more than that." Like, it came out around like the Boogie Nights time, when all the Summer of Sam, which I guess was kind of late 70s, early 80s, but it was one of those things where it's more than that, and there's more going on. It's kind of like Jordan said, it's sort of what's going on in suburbia, and
it also came out in the middle of the Clinton sex scandal too.
That's what I think is interesting too. They compared it to Nixon.
There was that kind of political betrayal overtones. Betrayal is a big theme in the movie, and then you also have kind of that sense of just kind of salaciousness that was kind of all over society at that time because of the Clinton sex scandal.
Well, the greatest thing about it, and just kind of not going performance by performance, but I guess I'd never really looked at the men in the film, because, well, I'll get to the women later, but Kevin Kline is so perfect as the lead because he's kind of funny. Like the scene where he's explaining to Tobey Maguire about how to masturbate, like, or on the self-abuse front, as he called it. Like, it's funny to me. What are you doing? It's funny to me because he just has this nice, good sense of humor that I think worked for that film. And even like the line Sigourney Weaver throws him when he keeps talking about golf. And she's like, "I already have a husband. I'm
bored.
Particularly
You're boring me."
Yeah.
Well,
I have a husband. I'm not interested in a second one.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh, that's great. We're having an affair. We should keep it very light. We could be very."
Yeah. Your needs, my needs.
It was a very he was perfect for that role.
Everyone
was cast really well, and that's another thing about his films. I think he really casts them well, and it's kind of unconventional casting too. It's in some of the things that the people that he chooses. But
really, I felt like in that one, for that time,
not so much in Ice Storm, but in his other films.
In Ice Storm, but you make a good point though, because Joan Allen plays a great long-suffering wife, but it's not the same thing she did in Nixon. It's not the same thing she did in The Crucible. It's totally different. But Christina Ricci definitely at that time could play that kind of sexually confused girl. She was playing that all over the place. And Sigourney Weaver's kind of
Was this before or after Opposite of Sex? It was before Opposite of Sex.
She made it before.
I think 98 was Opposite of Sex.
Yeah, but they made this movie like a year way before it was actually released. But then Sigourney was playing the kind of getting up the hill, but still sexy and exotic. She didn't look like any of the other women. She was tall and angular, and
she seemed like that character that wanted more from the outside world than what her town was offering. And she, like, the way she dressed and the way she handled her house, it was very modern with the water bed and all that. It's like, I'm not happy with what my life has given me, so it's going to be represented in what I have that show me as this kind of person. And just that scene and that she's washing the dishes and the way it's her space, and Joan Allen's trying to help her. She's like, no, just leave them there. I'll take care of them. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, there's so many, and when you talk about subtlety, and Joan Allen does really some wonderfully subtle work, but with Sigourney, who's not the most subtle of actresses, the little things like when she gives Christina Ricci a speech about like how children should grow up in these like nations that are, what does she say? But she's basically teaching her, your body is your temple.
Your body is your temple, and you should respect it.
And Sigourney on the Criterion, she was talking about how this character is actually a good mother. She's trying to teach her kids how to be adults. Mm-hmm. And that's why when she goes out and catches her son playing with fireworks, she doesn't yell at him. She's like, are you idiot? Like, you're going to blow yourself up. She's like, play with this whip. You know, like, there's subtle things to her, like the book she's reading on the waterbed is called When She Was Good, and it's about a woman who runs her husband down to the ground until he's broken. Yeah. And I just think that's perfect because she's probably wanting to do that.
Look at this book.
It's really good. It's a Philip Roth book.
Shel Silverstein.
Yeah. Where the sidewalk ruins men.
Stephanie Meyer.
Yeah, exactly. John Grisham.
The production design is really amazing too, which I always appreciate in films, and the way that there are so many kind of dichotomies in the movie. Like Sigourney Weaver's house is very modern and very cold and very slick, and then Joan Allen's home is very traditional and lots of bright colors.
There was stuff in the yard I noticed this time.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have stuff in the yard, they have grown children. I thought it was weird.
It's those little details like that were really interesting. And, you know, the shoplifting scenes, kind of with Joan Allen and Christina Ricci, kind of comparing those side by side, that it really just sets up this kind of feeling that these are these diametrically opposite people that have been put together in these strange, and maybe that's the key party metaphor, which is this, we take all these people are kind of put together in the wrong way, and maybe this is a way we kind of shuffle up those pairings that maybe these people aren't supposed to be together.
And aptly, Sigourney knows which one she's going home with. Her character knows.
Her neighbor's son.
Yeah.
I love her. I love Sigourney Weaver's character.
And one of the guys goes, I wish someone brought the daughters.
But I forgot that Allison Janney was in that.
Yes.
Before she fixed the gap.
She just shows up and she is amazing.
She is. She's like, so you don't have to play? She's just very...
Optional.
Yes. They need to hire her for more work. Not that she's dying. She's dying for work.
Yeah, she's not hurting, but she was really good in Away We Go.
Beauty. Oh.
American Beauty. I mean, she shows up and she plays these very small roles, and she's just really
in Juno.
She's great in Juno. She's one of the best things in Juno. And, there she is, and she's here to work, and she gets her paycheck.
American Beauty.
Oh, she was so good in that.
But if you notice, too, it's funny how you were talking about the mother and the daughter. If you look at the father and the son, if you look at Kevin Kline and Tobey Maguire, are they not the dopiest, spaciest boys you've ever seen? They both have opportunities to sleep with someone and don't. Do you know what I mean? They both are just... I don't know.
They're both in love with people that are too good for them, because Tobey Maguire's in love with Katie Holmes.
Yeah, Libet's Casey.
Who is obviously not having it. And then Kevin Kline is in love with Sigourney Weaver, who's obviously not having it. And the people that want them, they don't want. And, it's that, white people problems, obviously. It takes place in New Canaan, Connecticut, which is the nation's richest city in America.
It?
Yes. It's also where the Glass House is, which I thought they didn't mention at all in the film. The Glass House is Philip Johnson's estate. Philip Johnson is a famous architect, and he did this house that's completely glass on all sides. And it's a museum now, and he has this estate with 45 different buildings that he did. And some of them aren't even functional buildings, but they're all incredible, and it's in New Canaan, Connecticut, which is also where Ann Coulter grew up. So it's a place of dichotomy.
And diversity, obviously.
Oh, my goodness.
You're not talking about the Lily Sobieski movie, right?
Oh, that's what we were going for.
No. It's a house called the Glass House, and it's gorgeous. You should Google it. It's a gorgeous feat of architecture. He designed a lot of the buildings downtown in Houston.
I'm talking about a movie from 1970s. They didn't have Google back then.
Well,
but you have Google now.
No, I'm trying to be as I'm in the 70s.
You're very 70s.
I'm going to a key party after this.
Yeah, it was what, Ang Lee's second English language movie.
And I was reading that article that you had sent that it was meant to be his first English language film, and they just weren't able to make it work to where he was able to
do it.
Yeah, do it. But and what you were telling me about the costume designs, or you were telling Jordan outside?
Yeah, that the costume
We
designs
both read
were-
this. Yeah, they're sort of not accurate to the time period, which is interesting. They're sort of affectations on what people during that time period thought they should look like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I want to ask a question, because one thing that really distracted me was that weird Native American music, which I didn't remember in that
But didn't
opening.
you think the music was weird in Brokeback too?
I thought, no, for sure. And
it didn't-
and this
What do you mean? In
music-
Brokeback it worked.
Brokeback's music, bareback. Brokeback Mountain's music was written by, I think, a Spanish.
Yeah.
Okay, and it was very just like.
But it's very disjointed and atonal. and
No,
it's just
I
very-
disagree. I think it worked really well for that film.
I like
Sorry, I like that producer, that musician.
Gustavo. What is it?
Yeah.
Santione. No, I completely agree with you. When it started, it's odd, and I don't know what the
It's
reason
like-
for that
I
any of that
don't-
is.
Because I thought it sounded Native American. One of the people I was watching it with said it sounded very Asian. I was thinking, well, maybe Ang Lee brought some tapes from home, but no, I don't know. But it isn't. And then there are these scenes where Christina Ricci's on her bike, and it's just like a one shot, medium shot of her, and and that music is playing. And it's just so. It doesn't, and it fits into that. These people don't fit. These people. In the 70s were such a time where people were really trying to find their identities again. And so that music doesn't fit. Just like these people are misfits and they don't fit. And no one is in the right marriage and nobody's doing the right thing. And
I don't think it was that. I think what was interesting about that time, as we grew up during the 70s, Jordan and I.
You old bitches.
What I think is interesting is it was a time when things could actually shock people back then. And not that we don't get shocked now, but God, nothing, a sex scandal is nothing nowadays. But definitely in the 70s, so those things were shocking. And shocking things were happening within the government, and people were finding out.
Watergate and Vietnam and Nixon.
And Roe v. Wade was going at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so I think people were genuinely shocked, but people were also wanting to express their sexuality. As like the couple who was sitting there at the dinner party, they were talking about going to see Deep Throat. Married couples were going to the movies together to see a porno. I mean, so people were more open to stuff, and I feel like the Joan Allen character was sort of like, God, if I could only be open like that. I just thought that was so interesting.
But was her husband Kevin Kline? He didn't seem like the kind to be resentful, or not resentful, but resistant to the idea of that.
Oh, cheating men are going to be resistant to their spouse cheating.
But I did want to talk about
Mad Men.
Shades of Mad Men.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about a shot that it got me. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the first shot of the film is the family waiting for Tobey Maguire to arrive on the train, and it's staged differently than the last shot in the film, which is the exact same scene, but it's staged differently. The camera's differently angled, so they're not using the exact same shot. So I had made a note saying, it's how we perceive a situation, and we don't know the situation until we know the situation. Does that make sense?
Did you notice that in the first scene, the guy that gets off the train in front of him trips, and then when it shows that scene again, he doesn't trip?
Oh, really?
So they filmed the same scene twice.
No,
that's cool. I didn't even notice that.
Well, I think that's more of a continuity issue there, but
somebody needs to talk to them about that.
But I was kind of more.
But no, I do get what you're saying, because it's sort of like
the symbolism behind the way.
There's a lot of
why
symbolism.
shoot them differently? Why not just use the exact same shot?
Right.
If you're going to open it with it and close with it, why not use the same shot? But to me, it just felt like in the beginning, you see this family. They seemed happy. They seemed there to pick up their child. And when you realize the context of how they all arrived at that spot, it's just so different.
And what has just happened.
Yeah.
Well, I remember my mom watching it with me when I was younger, and she was so depressed by it. She's like, those people are so sad. She's like, even the Sigourney character, who you think is like free-spirited and sexual, when she comes home from sleeping with that kid from the key party, she gets on her bed and she curls up into a fetal position. Now, she doesn't break down and cry. She's not saying I'm totally sad, but she's so unhappy.
Oh, and the scene where the father comes home from the business trip, and they're like, you were gone.
I know.
Like, they didn't even notice that he had...
And then he tells Sigourney Weaver's character, he goes, Mikey's so out of it. She's like, Mikey's been out of it since the day he was born. And then he goes, he must take after me. And Sigourney just looks like, oh, you can't see my expression, but Sigourney looks like, yeah.
Well, Were you disappointed that whenever, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, Elijah Wood's character, what happens to him and the reaction to all that you didn't get to see Sigourney Weaver's reaction, essentially? You heard her waking up to it and hearing what was going on, but you never see...
No.
I wanted to see it. I don't know why. I just needed to see...
Because I think people want her to... some sentimentality from her, and that's not her. And I think that's where her... Yet again, it's one of the things I do love about Sigourney Weaver is she can put these things in these scenes that you can't put together. And when just her waking up, just the way she plays with her hair, the subtle things that I really, really like. So that's something I think.
What's it called? I haven't seen it in a while, but something that stood out for me was, maybe I played it up too much in my head, but Jamie Sheridan, who played Sigourney Weaver's husband, I think he did a really good job. Mm-hmm. I remember it being really subtle. Like, I remember his face at the key party when, like, I remember Sigourney Weaver when she wraps the key around her finger, around her wrist, and she looks like she's about to have a good old time, and he looks torn up about it. Like,
and they're the one couple, if you notice, that she doesn't really look at him to go be like, or like, this is gonna happen, or oh, I feel bad. You know, the couples, like, when they're getting those keys, they're looking at each other, they're looking shocked at what they're about to do. Sigourney just looks like, let's go. And
then his reaction when you see what happens to Elijah Wood's character.
It's subtle.
I don't know if this is just culturally the way I've experienced situations like that or seen situations like that, but I read that reaction on his face very differently.
Oh, really?
I read that reaction, and I see what you're saying. I read that reaction on his face like, there she goes again, gonna just do it. Like, I didn't see torture in his eyes, and even in the conversations that character had with Joan Allen in the car about it just seemed to him like, well, he's off with this kid, so here we are, so might as well not take advantage of it, but might as well do something with our time. And he wasn't necessarily looking to have sex with Joan Allen, but he just needed company.
Yeah.
I don't know, was I reading differently into that expression? To me, it was just more like, they have this relationship, she does her thing, he didn't think much of it.
Well, it's kind of shades of Mad Men, but it sort of references, think what that Sigourney Weaver's character was like when she first met him. She seems like she was probably wild, you know, and he's like, man, I met this wild sex kitten, great, and that dies. You know, and then
he moves her to the suburbs, and she starts.
There you go.
And she's not.
Now she's cleaning dishes, and she's getting a turkey. Like, how uncomfortable does she seem in that kitchen? Like, pulling that turkey out.
Yeah.
She's just like, and her hands, and everything is so. But Joan Allen, and it's the same thing with Kevin Kline and Joan Allen. He knew what he was getting. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they met at college, and she was a nice girl, and you know, it's so it's weird.
You don't really know their backstory, but you can kind of fill in.
Isn't that
what
great?
It
That's good acting when you can piece together all of that. And I think the most disappointing part to me was 0 Oscar nominations for that film.
Really?
0.
Well, Joan Allen was nominated for Golden Globe, or
Sigourney was nominated for the Golden
Globe,
movie. And Sigourney won the British Academy for Best
BAFTA.
Supporting Actress.
Okay.
But yeah, that was it. And that makes me a little sad because I think Boogie Nights took a little bit of that away, and it also came out the same year as Titanic. So
it's a very subtle film, and but some of these, I mean, I think Joan Allen definitely one of the best performances of her career.
Looking back, it is.
Yeah,
but I think during then people were not.
But this is a much bigger subject that I'm just going to... But we've talked about how the Academy has some years where they highlight only mostly independent. Some years they like, no, we need to go back to more mainstream because that brings in the audiences. So it's...
Well, that was the year of LA Confidential, Boogie Nights, Titanic, As Good as It Gets. I mean, like, that was a big year for acting.
That's a good mesh of films.
But Ice Storm is just one of those movies it was nice to look back on. And if you guys have any ideas for movies that we should look back on, or movies that you think not a lot of people have seen, we already know we have a couple of ideas. Just go ahead and you can click on our Facebook, our YouTube, our Instagram, or our... Yeah, and you can tell us what film that we should check out. It could be from 60s, 70s. It could be something we've never seen and we need to go back on. But this movie will be on Blu-ray Criterion when this podcast is out. So
it'll be fun if we watch a movie and some of us hate it and we just debate the heck out of it.
I'm glad we all liked it because I really didn't want to know what anybody thought until we just talked.
I don't remember being crazy about it, but they were like things that stood out that I liked. And
I can unplug her if you guys want.
He's getting so mean
That's
tonight.
I know, it's just so funny because this isn't the first time somebody's not done their homework. But it's the first time that somebody's getting called out.
Those
Anywho.
sweet ones. So so we're definitely
beg
going.
to differ.
So we're
The
hopefully
first time someone not Jordan gets called out.
hopefully we'll continue to
When I failed that class,
spotlight and highlight other films from the past. I'm just keep talking while these two are going on. So
I'm
both of you
with
shut
Team
up.
Curtis. Team
So
Curtis.
anyways, this is Curtis and this is Movies the Podcast. I'm alone.
And this is Jordan.
I'm cutting it right there. I don't care. Nobody's saying anything after that. That's getting edited right there.
Fuckers, I'm trying to wrap this up and you